Week 1. The first thing you will notice when starting semen retention, before you even see any changes in the mirror, is pressure. That is, the energy in your body that wants to escape via sexual release. Your decision to hold it in is causing pressure that is felt as an energetic buzz flowing through your body. Others report this feeling emanating from the base of the spine. In my own case, it was a ticklish feeling in the pit of my stomach. This feeling is pure energy, and when you breathe deeply, you can feel it moving around your body. It is this energy that, when diverted to the genital areas, causes intense lust. Avoiding this is retaining energy, the nourishing life substances in your body that are trying to escape. In the first few days of starting retention, the sexual feeling is very hard to resist. We cannot contain the energy we are so used to letting go of. Keeping this energy in can often make us shorter-tempered, more aggressive, braver, and more physically active. You will notice within a week of starting retention that a deep shift is beginning to take place in your emotional centers. With the sexual energy unable to escape, you become stronger-willed and less passive. This feeling that we want to release but can't is quite frustrating. It builds an unrest inside of us, and that unrest colors our behavior. It makes us stronger and more manly. It is the being with no resistance or strong feeling that becomes passive and weak-willed. It is logical that bottling up something so powerful as the sexual instinct will intensify one's feelings and make him more dominant and more dangerous. Sexual release makes men weak, and those in power have known this for millennia. As the military leader Saladin said over 1,000 years ago, "If you want to destroy any nation without war, make adultery or nudity common in the young generation." First visual benefits. The eyes. It was often said that a man constantly depleting himself of semen suffers most notably in the appearance of his eyes. Aristotle said that it was under the eyes that the best semen was stored, and hence those that were excessive in sexual matters would develop sunken eyes. This connection should be obvious when we consider how revealing the eyes are at judging whether a person is exhausted or energetic. We have always used the eyes as a way to gauge one's energy and mind state. We can tell if one is in a good physical or mental state often by simply reading the eyes. The eyes are the most intimately connected organs to the brain, and thus much of the state of the brain is reflected in them. And as the brain is the central operating system of the body, the eyes allow us to see the condition of the brain. We should mention here that much of one's attractiveness can be found in the eyes. The eyes are often said to be the most attractive feature of a human being, and I would guess that this is because they reveal the most biological information about the organism. And as humans desire to mate with the most genetically healthy specimens available, the eyes become the most reliable gauge of desirability. I believe this is a major reason that retainers experience more looks from strangers than compared to times when releasing. One of the first points of attraction when looking at others is, of course, the eyes. It is very hard for a face to be considered attractive if the eyes aren't healthy, even if the other features are ideal. Conversely, attractive eyes can easily beautify a face that is not considered conventionally attractive. The limbal rings, that is, the dark ring around the eye's iris, are often said to become stronger and more pronounced whilst retaining. As we age, these rings often become less pronounced and fade over time. The state of the limbal rings is often said to reflect the health and attractiveness of the organism. There is even research to support this. A study in 2017 found that men's attractiveness is influenced by the state of his limbal rings, and that women use them as indicators of attractiveness in mate selection. Men with more pronounced limbal rings were found to be both more healthy and more desirable. A retaining man saves his energy through reducing gonadal secretions. This lowers the rate of aging. Thus, it is logical that a retainer shows more signs of health and garners more attraction than when in a state of constant release. After several weeks, visceral attraction develops. A retainer often feels that others around him feel more attraction towards him than previously. A retainer is retaining the substances of his gender in his gonads. The ingredients of what makes him a man are being stored and circulated through his body, as opposed to release through ejaculation. It is for this reason that a man can quite literally reclaim his manhood by conserving his seminal energy. The more manly he becomes, the more feminine energy he attracts. A man with strong masculine energy will more likely attract the opposite, that is, a woman with strong feminine energy. A releasing masturbator is depleting his manly substances and thus renders himself effeminate. Effeminacy repulses the feminine female. This has been shown in studies on mice where males that cannot produce the testicular secretion often become repulsive to females. It is with these circulating testicular secretions that the man's voice also becomes deeper and more attractive to the opposite sex, as it displays his masculine energy, a direct result of sexual energy conservation. When a man's hormones are imbalanced, we often get an instinctive feeling that something is off with that person. The perfect example is the sexual pervert or creep. These are men who are in an extreme state of titillation for most of the time, and as a result they are flooded with androgens and other such hormones that manifest these sexual inclinations into physical attributes. We often say that guy looks like a creep or pervert, purely based on the way he looks. This is because we are at least somewhat aware that certain proclivities manifest themselves physically into the being. These changes take place through hormonal glandular secretions. Conversely, when a man's hormones are in check and not being produced by an excessive amount, we can sense positive qualities in his organism. We don't get negative visceral feelings as strongly when their hormonal profiles are more balanced. Consider the personality and aura of an extremely active bodybuilder to a sedentary writer. Their hormonal profiles are perhaps at other ends of the spectrum, and a lot of this is due to a difference in their lifestyle habits. What this means for the retainer is that others will feel more relaxed, safer, and perhaps even more happy to be around him when retaining, as his organism is more pleasing to interact with. An organism that is well balanced and organized will express more harmony and beauty in its constitution, and others will find these qualities most attractive. I believe that this is what makes retainers more approachable when on retention. Humans are often very selective when choosing to engage with a stranger. We don't engage with strangers we deem as dangerous, sickly, or degenerate. We tend to gravitate towards others that we find as attractive and pique our interest in some way. Eyes can play a big role in this, as stated before. The total physical attributes of a retainer are enhanced simply because their body is existing in a more natural state. After a month, I felt much more confident in my interactions, and the outcome of most of my interactions improved. Often when releasing, I would get lost in thought midway through conversation. I would often avert my gaze, especially when talking to an attractive woman. After a month of retaining, my eyes felt strong and powerful, and when I looked at others, I felt no need to avert my gaze. In fact, I felt that my eyes were beaming. I felt an attractive response from the people I was interacting with, a feeling I hadn't experienced when releasing all the time. It is hard to put this experience into words, but as I felt more healthy and full of life, I feel that my body was transmitting that to the person I was interacting with, and I felt that I provided more positive feelings in that person when interacting with me. After a couple of months on semen retention, I also had people approach me for advice, for directions, and multiple friends I hadn't heard from in years wanting to meet up. I can't explain that third one, but that's how it happened. Again, I think a lot of this comes down to the simple fact that organisms in a healthier, more natural state cause a stronger, more positive impression on those around us. I once had 2 people approach me in one morning, which was very unusual. I remember another time a lady approached me at the train station and asked me very strange questions about being lost, although already on the station platform waiting for her train. And as silly as this may sound, I went to the zoo and stood at the glass, and an orangutan came up to me and put his hand on the glass where my hand was and locked eyes with me. Many people came rushing to look at this and take photos. My partner was very surprised and now thinks all animals love me. This was a funny experience, and of course there is no real evidence here, but it was an interesting observation nonetheless. Also, within a couple of months, my articulation improved. At that time, I spent every day talking with customers and thus had plenty of opportunity to gauge and make observations regarding my speech. I noticed that as my energy levels increased, my mind became noticeably sharper. When a conversation was heading in a certain area, I was getting intuitive signs that this helped me steer the conversation towards or away from certain topics. I felt that I could read the intentions of the person I was speaking with more deeply, and thus was more thoughtful in my responses. I was even complimented on my character and thoughtfulness by some customers at around this time. I believe this improvement in thought and speech to be a direct result of more energy. I notice that when I am exhausted, my speech deteriorates, so in contrast, when my energy is abundant, as in the case on retention, my brain can work harder to process information and formulate a better response. 2 to 3 months in, and I was feeling very intuitive. I became more aware of the atmosphere in the room, the feelings of others, and more subtleties in the environment than I seemed to previously care for. I could tell when a colleague was putting on a display rather than being themselves. I could palpably feel it when someone was being fake or dishonest, and I also felt less hesitant to call it out. I am not sure if this is a positive or negative. Perhaps by some it may be seen as arrogance, but I felt much more comfortable calling out the bad behavior of colleagues, and did so on a few occasions whilst retaining. Something I almost never engaged in when releasing. I feel this comes back to the point of becoming more dominant when your testicular secretions are not being lost. Becoming more dominant, especially in the workplace, does come with its drawbacks, as the competition becomes more heated and resentment from the boss can get stronger. Overall, I prefer to exist in this way, where I can stand up for myself and not allow others to exert their will over mine. Within 6 months, I noticed improvements in my life. I had the energy to start a few side hustles. I had success with my music, which was likely a result of becoming more proactive and communicating with more music-related people in that time. I also found some new hobbies which gave me a good feeling. Within this time, I made some major changes to my life, such as breaking up with my girlfriend and leaving my job, which completely changed my trajectory. I started to meet new people and left a couple of friendships I wasn't enjoying anymore. Within a year, I noticed that my ability to cut the fat and pursue exactly what I wanted in life came as a result of retaining. I didn't used to have this drive or focus, and I think it was because I was always tired and in my free time often got distracted by sex. With that feeling under control, I was free to invest myself in more productive pursuits that ultimately benefited my life. Within a year, I met the partner I would marry and moved to a much better place, something I hadn't done in over a decade before. All aspects of my life took a massive turn, and looking back after 3 years retaining, it is as clear as day how much of a positive effect semen retention has had on my life.